Hey guys, Lee Martin here, and week 12 of the college football season is ready to roll, and I've got 5 winning picks to get your motor running this weekend. Let's break it all down as I bring you my Fierce 5 for week 12, and click the link in the description if you want a bit more detail on these picks. Let's start off my first of 5 as my crystal ball sees the Indiana Hoosiers getting the cover in Happy Valley. Penn State is a very public team, and the conventional wisdom is because they lost to Minnesota last week and took their first loss of the season. The Nittany Lions would be loaded for bear. Well, make that Hoosiers. But then we take a look at what the odds makers are dealing, and suddenly we see that Penn State is laying as much as 15 points against an Indiana team that owns one of the best passing games in the nation, and an offense that ranks 34th, averaging 34 points per game. Of course, the counter to all that is the stingiest Penn State defense, coupled with an offense that is equal to or better than Indiana's. While that may be true, Indiana will move the chains through the air, as they have done so far this season. Because Penn State's pass defense isn't all that great, Indiana's Peyton Ramsey will be the man under center, and it was just 2 weeks ago that he threw for 351 yards against Nebraska. Penn State will win the game, but Indiana will keep it close enough to get the cover. Let's say in the Big Ten for our second pick, where we see Wisconsin traveling to Nebraska in a matchup that sees the visitors as 14.5-point favorites. Wisconsin is coming off of a 24-22 win over Iowa, but for the third consecutive game, failed to cover the number. The defense is what everyone was raving about early on when they talked about the Badgers, but it hasn't been all that great lately because Whiskey has allowed an average of 28 points per game over their last 3. The key to a Nebraska cover rests with containing Wisconsin's star running back Jonathan Taylor. The Badgers own the 16th best rushing back in the nation, and running the ball takes time off the clock. Nebraska will score off of this suddenly slumping Wisconsin defense, and that should keep them within striking distance of the cover. Grab all 14.5 of those points on the home dog and cash a winner. Guys, I can't seem to get out of the Big Ten this week, and we'll stay right there for our third pick of the week. We've looked at a couple of live dogs so far, but now we're going to get freaky chalky here as we see Ohio State laying a ridiculous number on the road in New Jersey when they take on Rutgers. When I first looked at this game, I made my own line and came up with 55. I thought about that and laughed to myself until I looked at what the odds makers were dealing and found out I wasn't that far off. Right now the Buckeyes are laying 51, and I can completely see why. Now this line is a historic high, but if we look back at their last 5 meetings with Rutgers, we see that Ohio State has won and covered each contest, despite point spreads ranging from 20.5 to 39 points. And 2 of those games the Buckeyes won by 56 points or more. These teams are so far apart. It's like varsity playing the JV. Here you have a Rutgers team that can't score against the stingiest defense in the country, coupled with a Buckeyes offense that's also #1 in the nation. This is as lopsided as it gets, and for a girl who's partial to underdogs, I can't help but take the plunge on the chalkiest favorite on the board. Bet Ohio State -51 at Intertops. Let's head on over to the SEC for our 4th pick of the week. Although Georgia is 8-1 straight up on the season and has covered in their last 2 games, most recently a 27-0 shutout in Missouri, I'm siding with the Tigers, who are sure to rebound after a listless 20-14 win over Mississippi. But that was the first time Auburn has failed to cover at home this season and still remains undefeated at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Georgia has a terrific defense, but Auburn's isn't shabby either, and both teams mirror each other in terms of the running game, with the Tigers averaging 219 yards per game, just 4 yards more per game than Georgia. This will be a battle fought in the trenches, and the Tigers will be out for revenge after dropping last year's meeting in Georgia. We have 2 similar teams in this game, but one is at home and getting a 3-point head start to boot. That team is Auburn, so go Tigers. We're going to wrap things up in the Big 12, where the undefeated Baylor Bears will welcome the 8-1 Oklahoma Sooners. This line looks a bit inflated because the Bears are at home and still getting 10 points from the bookmaker. Oklahoma destroyed Baylor 66-33 when these teams met last year, but this year's Baylor's team is much more competitive than last and will be eager to even the score on Saturday. The Sooners are a public team and as a result often get hooked with the big numbers that they don't cover. Case in point, over the last 5 games, Oklahoma has covered in only 1, and although Baylor doesn't win big, they do win. And that's the key, because they won't go down easy to their rivals from Oklahoma. Both teams put plenty of points on the board, but the Bears have the edge defensively. I'll grab those 10 points with the undefeated team at home, and I hope you do too. Well, guys, that's it from me. And if you want a bit more detail on these picks, then take a look at my Fierce 5 college football selection on the SBR Picks page. Just click the link in the description. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm Lee Martin, and may all your wagers be winners.